the extent to which the assistance involves the use of potential lethal force. Wow. The federal DoD military is going to help local cops engage with civilians. Here's a procedure. Experimentation on human subjects can only be done with the consent of the subject. How about that one? A new DoD directive has an interesting phrase in there called lethality. And when we were looking at other prior DoD directives, we didn't see it inside there. So it's raising some eyebrows out there all across the interwebs. This is the official directive. You see it's entitled DoD Intelligence and Intelligence-Related Activities and Defense Intelligence Component Assistance. So the DoD is going to come and help you out to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. So, okay, well, interesting document, 22 pages. We can go through it quickly and hit the highlights on it, but briefly, this is very important. You see that this is where this comes from. The Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, released September 27th. It's been cleared for public release now, effective September 27th, released now. It is a document that reissues and cancels these two other documents that we're going to look at. 5240.01 is reissued and canceled, and this was amended 2007. So it's the same number, right? 5240.01 is the same here. 5240.01. This one was canceled now, or reissues and cancels that one. So it's gone from 2007. We're going to delete that one. This will replace that. And it's also going to incorporate and cancel this one, 5240.1, which was passed back in 1982 as amended. Now you'll notice it also is implementing these executive orders 12333 and 13388, and it's establishing policies and directions for intelligence-related activities, assigning those responsibilities and providing guidelines to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. So we see in this document that if we search for this phrase called lethal, we see a whole paragraph here talking about levels of authority. Subject to paragraph 3.1, defense intelligence components may provide personnel to assist a federal department or agency, including federal law enforcement agency or state or local law enforcement agency, when lives are in danger in response to a request for that assistance in accordance with the following approval authorities. These are the approval authorities. It says the Secretary of Defense may approve the assistance as described in paragraph 3.2. And 2, the decision to approve these requests are reserved to the Secretary of Defense. Subsection A, Secretary can decide to approve the requests for these things about the provision of personnel to support response efforts for civil disturbances, which may also require presidential authorization. So the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, double face masker, face shielder, COVID hero on the front lines for us all, and then went on medical leave, didn't tell anybody about it. He has the permission now to provide response efforts for civil disturbances, all right? The DoD can also respond to chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and high-yield explosive incidents, okay? And they can also assist in responding with assets with potential for lethality or any situation in which it is reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. It also includes all support to civilian law enforcement officials in situation where a confrontation between civilian law enforcement and civilian individuals or groups is reasonably anticipated, like civil war. Such use of force must be in accordance with other DoD policies as potentially as further restricted based on the specifics of the requested support. Now, provision or use of unmanned systems in the United States, except as delegated by the Secretary of Defense. So we've got lethal there, and if we continue to search for it, we see it's also here. Approval of requests for permissible assistance, as we just described, which is using lethal force in situations, in confrontations between civilians and civilian law enforcement. Approval may be provided on a case-by-case basis. The legal office responsible must determine whether this is provided lawfully, and the approval authority will consider these things. 1, lethality. The extent to which the assistance involves the use of potential lethal force. Wow. They're also going to consider, should we approve this effort or not? Should we approve this operation or not? Also, the risk, the threat that providing the assistance will pose both to the safety of the public and to the defense intelligence components, including any personnel, as outlined in presidential memos, and the sources of funds and reimbursement, and whether it's appropriate for our competencies, and exigent circumstances. Now, when a person's life or physical safety is reasonably believed to be in imminent danger, and time does not permit a defense intelligence component head to obtain approval from the Secretary of Defense defense, or others, they are authorized to provide the intelligence assistance described, subject to these restrictions. So if they can't reach the SecDef because he's getting his prostate checked again or whatever, but the defense intelligence component will immediately report the details to the secretary as appropriate. Defense intelligence assistance may not continue for longer than 72 hours, and it may not be denied based on money. Wow, okay, so that's a whole new provision. So presumably, there's also lethality being discussed in this document, except I'm control Fing it, and there's nothing in here. It says this directive reissues these. Maybe lethality is in these, don't know. But this one doesn't talk about any of that this reissued, right? Again, this is the same one, 5240-01, just like this document here is 5240-01, same document. So it's replacing this one. This one doesn't have it in there because I wanted to think to myself, oh, that's crazy. Like, what are they giving new DoD directives for engaging with civilians on the streets? The federal DoD military is going to help local cops engage with civilians? What the hell? All right, where'd that come from? This applies to these people. Definitions, policy. It's the policy will follow the laws, will conform to guidance, will provide accurate and timely warnings. Components are here. Store information appropriately. No defense intelligence component shall request any person undertake activities that do not follow our procedures. Report anything that violates the law. Under no circumstance shall any DoD component or conspire to engage in assassinations. Same thing here. Responsibilities. Serve as the focal point for the Secretary of Defense. The Department of General Counsel shall do these things. The secretaries of the military departments shall do these things. Develop joint intelligence capabilities. Train and equip military assets. Fulfill military unique national intelligence activities. And do those things like intelligence tasking, collection, all the things. That's it. There you go. Gordon, England. There you go. Effective 2007. I didn't see anything about taking out civilians. I didn't see anything in there about that. But okay, maybe it's in the other document because obviously they referenced two documents. So that was 5240-01, which has been reissued through this document and canceled. All right, let's look at the other one. Procedures governing the DoD activities of DoD intelligence components that affect U.S. persons. Oh, now we're on to something, right? This has to be something in here about or taking out civilians. This DoD regulation sets forth procedures, implements this directive that replaces the 1979 versions. They're just like replacing it. This is even shorter than the newer one. So 1982, they didn't need all this like this new one is. So here are procedures. Maybe these are referencing other materials. Here's chapter 3, explanation of the terms. And maybe the document goes on. It's delineated in here. Here's a procedure. Experimentation on human subjects can only be done with the consent of the subject. How about that one? So experimentation is something that was discussed back in 1982. And so maybe this is just a change log is what I'm looking at. Does the original one, this document is incorporating change 2. So this is just the wrong document. So I got to go back and find the real one from December 1982 because that was just articulating a change. But as far as I can tell, this is new and maybe it's buried somewhere else in there, but it certainly is interesting to read it. And when you look back at these new other filings, incorporating change 3, effective there. All right. Massive monster documents. So I don't know if they're new or not, if they're buried in multiple layers, but this one brought it right to the surface and you can read it for yourself. DoD helping now to interface with law enforcement agencies in the event of civil unrest. Wonder what that could be for.